It's a massacre unlike any other in World War II. A small town, an innocent town, wiped off the face of the earth. Yes, we are talking about the Lidice Massacre. The town of Lidice is a small town, a quiet little town, about 15.5 miles outside of the town of Prague. The town is home to about 450 people, but after the massacre, about 380 would no longer be alive. But before we get into the town of Lidice too much, let's take a step back and look at events that would result in this tragic massacre. That would be Operation Anthropoid. Operation Anthropoid was an operation carried out by the British and a small group of Czechoslovak resistance operatives. The most well-known of those were two assassins. Their names, Josef Gabček and Jan Kubis. Starting in 1941, Reinhard Heydrich would be appointed to Reichsprotector of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, replacing Konstantin von Neurath at the orders of Adolf Hitler, because Adolf Hitler agreed with Reinhard that Neurath was very lenient in his role, which caused the Czechoslovak people to kind of slack off a little bit, which was hurting the German army, because this area was a very big German industrial district which was pumping out war material and vehicles and ammunition for the war. So as Heydrich was put into the position of Reichsprotectorate, he immediately worked to strengthen policy, carry out countermeasures against the resistance, and keep up production quotas in Czech motor and armor factories. But due to his brutal efficiency, he was given the nickname the Butcher of Prague, and the Blonde Beast, and the Hangman. From the beginning of the war, many resistance efforts could be observed throughout Europe, including Poland, Yugoslavia, and France. But the Czech lands remained relatively calm and produced significant amount of material, as we mentioned earlier, for the German war effort. Now this is bad, obviously, because if they had resistance, they could destroy the German or even disrupt the German production, which could help the Allies in the war. And the Czech government knew this. So the Czech government in exile felt they had to do something that would inspire the Czechs and also show the Czechs and Slovaks were allies. Thus came about the operation. The planning was initiated by František Moravec, head of the Czechoslovak intelligence services, almost as soon as Heydrich was appointed protector, with the knowledge and approval of the Czechoslovak president in exile, Edvard Benes. Now, Moravec personally briefed the director of operations in the British SOE, and who was also responsible for the Czech and Polish country sections of the organization. That was Gubbins, who readily agreed and helped mount the operation, although knowledge of it was restricted to a few of the headquarters and training staff of the SOE. The operation was given the code name Anthropoid, Greek for having the form of a human, a term usually used in zoology. Preparations for the operation began almost immediately on the 20th of October 1941. Moravec had personally selected 24 of the most promising personnel from among the 2,000 exiled Czechoslovak soldiers in Britain. They were sent to one of SOE's commando training centers in Arsag in Scotland. Moravec selected two specific men out of those two initially. Those were Warrant Officer Josef Gabček, who was a Slovak, and Staff Sergeant Karel Svoboda, who was Czech, to carry out the operation. But Svoboda would receive a head injury during training and was subsequently replaced by Jan Kubis, another Czech commando. But this caused a little delay because Jan Kubis hadn't completed his training, nor had the necessary false documents been prepared for him. So they had to delay the operation to the 28th of December. At 2200 hours on the 28th of December 1941, a lone Halifax of the number 138 Squadron of the RAF took off from the RAF base at Tangier, carrying Kubis and Gobchek, the Anthropoid pair, along with two other commando groups, Silver A and Silver B. Their target? Pilsen, Czechoslovakia. Unfortunately, during the travels, the aircrew had problems with the navigation. This led to the Anthropoid pair being dropped at a town by the name of Lidice, which is east of Prague. After landing, the group headed toward Pilsen, where they linked up with their allies, and from there, they headed off to Prague to plan the attack. Now, the pair began planning for the attack and actually had multiple different variations put out on the table, one being killing Heydrich on a train, but they realized that that was not going to work. And after a lot of planning, they landed on one certain plan that they knew was going to work. Now, Heydrich liked to drive around in an open-top car around Prague to assert his dominance against the pleas of Hitler and other high-ranking officers. They wanted him to drive with a closed-top car with an escort in the front and back, security all around for the most safety, but he didn't want to listen. In fact, he wanted to show off the most dominance he could, and by driving around in an open-top car, it did just that. But during the planning of this attack, they had meticulously scouted Heydrich's route every single day from his house, which was actually in Panensky Brezhny, north central of Prague, at Prague Castle, and he had to come into the city every single day the same route, and they meticulously planned and watched that exact route every single day. And they were able to find a spot where Heydrich's driver, SS Oberscharführer Johannes Klein, would have to slow down to almost a crawl to get around a tight curve. This road was formerly known as Krčmaryova Trida in Prague 8 Lieben, near Belovka Hospital. The plan was to wait until the car was at its slowest speed, then one assassin would jump out with a Sten gun and shoot Heydrich. But in case the gun jams, which the Sten is prone to do, the second assassin would be standing in reserve with an explosive and would throw it at the car if he needed to. After the attack, they would run and go into hiding until they could make an escape. Now they had their plan, it was time to make the attack. At 10:30 on the morning of the 27th of May, 1942, Heydrich began his daily commute that they had meticulously scouted, and at this time, Gobchek and Kubich got themselves into position, along with a third assailant by the name of Josef Valchik, from a member of the Silver A group that I had mentioned earlier. They got themselves into position. Gobchek held the Sten gun and had a raincoat on to conceal it. A little bit farther back on the road was Jan Kubis, who had an anti-tank grenade concealed in a suitcase. And then a further 100 meters up the road, Valchik acted as a lookout for Heydrich's car. As Heydrich's car came to the turn, a green open-topped Mercedes 320 Cabriolet B reached the curve. As it slowed down, Gobchek dropped his coat, raised the Sten gun, and jumped out in front of the car. But it jammed. He froze. But as the car came to a stop, Kubis, who had not been spotted by Heydrich or his driver Klein, opened up the suitcase, grabbed the grenade, and threw it at the car. Now, he originally wanted it to end up in the back seat. Instead, it ended up behind the car, just near the rear tires. It exploded, and it shot shrapnel up into the car, and it hit Reinhard Heydrich in the back. A small amount did hit Kubis, but it wasn't enough to critically hurt him. After the grenade went off, Heydrich stumbled back into his seat for a second. Then they both Klein and Heydrich got up, jumped out of the car, and started running for the assailants. Kubis had stumbled from the blast, but was able to get up, grab his bike, and ride away. Klein attempted to shoot him, but he was very dazed from the grenades from the grenade blast that when he went to shoot, he instead hit the mag release catch and the gun jammed. Kubus also shot up into the air, which made an entire crowd of people that had just gotten off of a tram that had halted near the scene of the attack scattered. They scattered out, which allowed him to get away. At the same time, Gobchek, who had been frozen in fear, attempted to reach for his bike and pedal away, but he realized that this attempt was futile, and instead went for the wall and cover. At the same time, Heydrich jumped down and attempted to go for him, and when Gobchek went for cover, he himself also went to cover, but Heydrich did not get back up. In fact, he stumbled down and stayed there because of the stuff that he had, from the injuries he had sustained already from the blast. Klein, after seeing that Kubus had gotten away, came back over to Heydrich to help him, but Heydrich yelled out, "Get that damn check!" And so Klein jumped up, and while Klein was headed over, Gobchek tried to run away and ran into a butcher shop. Unknown to him, the butcher was a Nazi sympathizer, and the Nazi sympathizer ran out into the road and was waving his arms up, going crazy. Finally was able to flag down Klein. Told him, "The guy's inside my store, go get him." So Klein ran into the store, and as he was running in, Gobchek was running out. They ran into each other. Gobchek shot him twice, hitting him in the leg, and then ran out onto another passing tram and got away. After this, Klein stumbled back to Heydrich, and with the help of other civilians around, they were able to take him to the emergency room at the Bolovka hospital nearby. Now, what's interesting about this next, about Heydrich in the hospital, is when they went in, they put him in surgery, and he seemed to be getting better. Like, he seemed to be improving very well. He seemed like he was going to come out of this and survive. But then, randomly, he was sitting in his room eating lunch, seemed fine. Then he all of a sudden slumped over and went into shock. He would lose consciousness and then go into a deep, deep coma, which he would not survive from, which he would not come out of. And Heydrich would die on the 4th of June at 4:30 in the morning from sepsis. After Heydrich's death, a huge funeral was held for him in Berlin. He was given full honors by Hitler. Hitler was absolutely enraged beyond any description of this assassination. He could not believe that they had the audacity to plan and execute such an attack on one of their leaders. Originally, he favored killing 10,000 politically unreliable Czechs, but Himmler convinced him that if he did this would be really bad for them, because the Czech territory was a very important industrial zone. And after talking to him and convincing him, they came up with a plan that would see more than 5,000 people murdered and 13,000 people arrested. Now, probably asking, well then how does Lidice fit into any of this? Well, let me tell you. As part of this reprisal, Hitler ordered that the Nazi intelligence in Prague find any village or any person or group that was in any way linked to this and kill them. So the Nazi intelligence starts doing it, and they falsely link Heydrich's assassination to the town of Lidice, because they believed that this town was harboring these fugitives during their time here, but that was false. They didn't care. They immediately ordered, erase that town from the map. With that order, a SS regiment was sent to the town. All the men from 17 years to about 84, which numbered about 173, were taken to the Horak family farm on the edge of the village and shot. They started off shooting 5, but the commander thought this was way too slow and ordered them to up it to 10. All the men were then put into a huge mass grave and left there. It is now a memorial, and you can go there and see it today. As for the women and children, the women, which numbered about 203, were taken to the village school along with the children, which numbered about 105. The women were sent to various camps. The majority were sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp, which was a all-women's camp, and they were either sent to hard labor or immediately gassed. The majority were gassed, but 8 women survived the camp and were able to return to Lidice, to the new town of Lidice, built right next to the original site in 1949, and they lived there for the rest of their life. Now, as for the children, well, they were first sent to that village school. They were then sent to another school in another neighboring town, and then were sent to a textile factory on Gneisenau Street in Lodz. They suffered while there from a lack of hygiene and from illness. And while they were there, 7 other children were selected for Germanization, which meant they were taught German, given German clothes, taught German everything, and given to SS families. The rest of the kids were sent to Chelno concentration camp, where the majority were gassed immediately upon arrival. Now, after all the occupants were removed from the village and killed, the town was set ablaze, and then explosives were brought in to destroy all the foundations, which they did not actually destroy them all. All the animals that were in the town were then slaughtered, and even the deceased that were buried in the cemetery were not spared. They were dug up, looted, and then destroyed. After all this, a 100-strong German work party was sent in to remove all visible remains of the village. They rerouted the stream that went through the village and removed the roads going in and out. They then covered the whole area with topsoil and crops. It was like it was never there. During this entire process, though, a film director by the name of Franz Tremmel made a film documenting it for further intimidation in case another assassination attempt or public display of opposition was either entertained or attempted. The same process that destroyed this village of Lidice would also be repeated about 2 weeks later to the town of Massacre, which is about northeast of Prague. And the reason they chose this town was because a radio transmitter was found that belonged to the underground team who parachuted in with Gabčík and Kubis. Speaking of Gabčík and Kubis, after the attack and after they escaped, they were able to stay under the radar for a while. That is, until the Nazis started threatening reprisals to the city of Prague. As a result, many of the civilians who were fearing for their safety along with their family's safety ended up going to the Nazis and giving them information about not only the assailants but also safe houses that they had gone through. As a result, the Nazis were able to easily kind of shrink down their searching area for the assailants. Also, they were able to raid a bunch of safe houses and get even more information along with killing the occupants. After all that, they were able to locate the assailants at the Cathedral of St. Cyril and Methodius, where they were taking refuge. The SS laid siege to the church for hours, but were not able to take the assailants alive. Even with 750 soldiers, they never got to the men. But Kubis had obtained some wounds during the fight and also had the wound from the initial attack on Heydrich and was found unconscious and died shortly after, while Gabčík and multiple other resistance fighters committed suicide in the crypt after repeated attempts by the SS to force them out, including tear gas and flooding. Another couple of assailants were also killed up in the tower of the church earlier on in the battle. Today there is a memorial at the church where the assailants died, along with a memorial at the assassination site, which has changed a lot today, but there is still a memorial there where you can see the location that the whole attack went down. As for the ruins of Lidice, they were dug up and is now a memorial to the town. There are multiple foundations still there, including the Horvath farm, the church, and various other buildings. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a memorial on the mass grave of the men and young boys who were killed at this village. There's also a kids memorial and a women's memorial at the village. If you would like to see more, you can go on Google Earth. There is a lot of pictures of the town. There's also, someone did this on Google Earth, which I find so cool, is they made a render of what the original village would have looked like, and you can go through and do 360 looks around the town, which is very cool, so you can get an idea of what the town looked like. Another place you can go to see more information of the on-site memorial is a YouTube channel called C. Butchko. I'll link it down in the description below. It's a really cool video by a history teacher where he basically took a tour of the entire memorial with his class that he took with him on a trip, and gives you a good kind of explanation of the area. So if you want to see more on that, definitely check that out. We might do it in the future. Who knows? You'll have to subscribe to find out if we do that in the future. Now, after the massacre, as I said, they did make a film of this, and they did not try to hide this. They were proud of it. They were proud that they did such a horrible thing. But the name of Lidice would never be forgotten. Multiple countries renamed buildings or neighborhoods after this town. A couple of examples are San Jeronimo Lidice, which is a neighborhood in Mexico City, was renamed that after this tragedy, and a neighborhood in Crest Hill, Illinois was renamed from Stem Park to Lidice. There was also a shrine at Lidice Park in Crest Hill that you can go and see. Another example is a square in the English city of Coventry, which was devastated by Luftwaffe bombing during the Blitz, was also named Lidice. And that was the Massacre of Lidice. If you found that interesting, and if you want to see more videos just like that, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any future uploads, and if you did have any more questions, leave them in the comments below. With that said, we'll see you back here at the WWII History Bar in our next video. Peace.